Second layer has to do with application logic, and the third layer is a data layer. And we see how the horizontal layers and the plans and the ones on the background are intermixed with this 3D map. So first of all, the authors, the users. The authors, this is the first layer. In the case of Twitter, they are what we called prosumers. They are producers and consumers. They have no concept, they have no knowledge on accessibility, they are not aware of that. They do not have budget either, because they do it right there. They have no responsibility. No one is going to demand them to make sure that they abide by certain requirements. And how can we face this from an accessibility point of view? Well, we have to provide documentation and guide them. And what are the most important characteristics? First of all, there is a community that appears on Twitter. Users do not publish whatever they want. They abide by certain rules, by certain conventions, which are ad hoc, specific for Twitter, and have an important symbol. For instance, they put a dot. For instance, if they want to make a specific comment, they put RT before a quote. They put all these things, these symbols that they have to put before putting anything. And then they have also ad hoc. So, for instance, someone could be using this symbol specifically before a specific topic, and it could be to do with communications, etc. And all these different symbols make it more difficult. Another peculiarity is the language that they use. There are very few characters, and so they use ad hoc natures. And I'm really sorry here for the stenotypists and interpreters, because the vocabulary is quite difficult. They use ways of putting capital letters and small letters, known as canet case, in which they unite different words together. They use different characters such as tabs, where just because one character is similar to the other is used in order to replace it. So, for instance, as here instead of ASS is at and a symbol of the dollar. They use phonetic writing, such as the letter U in English instead of U. They use pinbad. So these are characters that belong to different games of characters, like, for instance, thumbs up, thumbs down. And then they use telegrams, things that are not pronounced. So, for instance, a heart to say love. They also use leet speak, which is a kind of way of replacing letters by numbers to be like a real freaky. This L337 is hard to say lit. Or they use ASCI, their own way of typing. So all this causes problems for people that use screen readers, and also problems for people that are dyslexic, because tweets are very difficult to understand, even for anyone that here in the room. Even though we may have a total reading capability, I'm sure some of you did not understand the first reading I did, only the interpretation. And so, all this can affect accessibility. I now go to the other end, the content of the data. There's 140 characters that you can type per tweet, yes, but if we look at Twitter, we can see that there's a lot of metadata, semantic nodes that is what is trying to be represented on the right, on the figure on the right. This is a description of the code that there is within a tweet. These are much more than 140 characters. Of course, you cannot see what it says, but maybe there are 30 characters where we have different metadata, intrinsic and extrinsic information. Information about the date, the language, the user. There's also information about the nodes. There's the own conventions of the writers where they put an at in order to mention another user. Well, this is all stored by Twitter, and it says with this information here they're referring to another user. And all this information is very useful, because having semantic metadata not only abides by a certain accessibility requirement, but also it allows us to expand. Why do not say the at FDF? Why cannot we expand it to I recommend following this person today on Friday? If we know that this at FDF, which means follow Friday, follow this person on Friday, this is something that could be translated thanks to this metadata. Also, there are some users that mix languages, multilingual accounts that they use the writing as they wish. There may be different languages within the same timeline. On the other hand, also the content and the data can come from external services, like URL providers that direct you to another link, images that are related in another site to Twitter. These are examples I gave you before. I don't have much time, so I'll go quickly. This is more simple. We have the editor to create the messages. They can be internal or external, can be Twitter or, for instance, what Jose Manuel presented. And this allows to manage the service and offer content. One of the main problems, URLs that do not treat editors as such. If it's plain text, it won't do this, for instance. We also have the application logic in the middle that sends messages from one side to the other, and also suggestions to improve accessibilities to enrich this data model that have semantic metadata with titles, with an expansion of the abbreviations, with quotes, any element that could give greater richness to the data that's behind all of this. And another question that we propose is a semantic assessment. Why don't we try to understand what is being said and add metadata so that Twitter can decide whether what a user has written is correct or not? And then we have the user agents. The user agents present the content, but also they have like a template. So we have a specific page, like on the Twitter, it's like this. There's dynamic information, but also things that can be customized by the user, like an avatar, etc. And all of this also has to abide by certain accessibility requirements. Also, the user agent can shows what the links are, should show the preferences of the user, etc. There are many strategies that can be done to improve accessibility. This is an example of a page done with by a Twitter user, and here we can see that they're using text that is not accessible for a screen reader because it's putting a background image, which is the only opportunity that Twitter gives it. Maybe this could be changed so we have greater accessibility. So it's necessary to involve all the players in the chain, so the from the producer to the user, the platforms, and even the providers of Twitter and external providers. So that something like this, thanks to DRT for all for this wonderful conf, could be something that is more legible for all. Thank you very much.